Okay, it's been approximately a year and 9 months since I made the original video on my WhisperKool Ceiling Mount 4000. I'm gonna now service this again. I guess the last time I serviced it was 1 year ago. We're gonna see what this looks like after 1 year of no servicing. So it's a year and 9 months since the last video, since the original video. And now we're going to take a look at the WhisperKool to see how it's holding up. Okay, before I turn it off, here's the WhisperKool 4000. There it is installed. I have the hatch here to access the drain line. I pulled the hatch cover off. There it is. There it is running. Good old WhisperKool 4000. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to discuss first how this is the water pan here, this piece. It has this piece of styrofoam here, which maybe that's not supposed to be there, I'm not sure. But the key way we get this off is we loosen and remove these screws here, which can be hand turned, and this one here. You can't probably see that very well. I've got my little headset light on. There we go. You can hand turn and remove those, and this will then swing down. Let's do that now. Okay, I have removed these little side screws that go in these little things here, and then I slid the unit towards the camera and pulled it out. You got to hold it steady because there's always going to be water there on the bottom. So I'm going to turn the camera. And that's going to drip a little bit. That's the switch housing right there. All of this is going to drip a little bit because it's sort of collecting water. The switch sits in that little piece there where all the rust is. And when it gets to a certain level, it turns on the pump. All right, I'm going to go empty this out. Okay, before I empty it out, let's just take a look at what the natural water level will be in this unit, even with that switch in there. There is this much water that stands pretty much in the unit at all times. I don't know what that is, maybe a ½ inch. If I had a tape measure, I'd stick it in there. So the pump the water will drip on here and just run down to here, and when it gets to about this level here, the pump will turn on and start pumping it out. We'll look at that pumping unit in just a minute. Okay, so I tried to clean the water pan just with regular dishwashing soap and a dish brush, and I've dried it with a paper towel. Here's what it looks like now. As you can see, here's the outline of the bracket that holds the switch. The switch that turns on the pump. The switch always sits in right there because it sits in a bracket. We're going to go look at the switch in the bracket now and see what it looks like. Okay, we're back at the WhisperKool. The water pan has been removed, and here's the switch that sits in that bracket that I was talking about. I'm wearing a little headset light, see if I can... Okay. So I'll take all that out so we can get a better look at it. But you can see the rust is going to work on the switch. So I may have not gotten up this pump line yet. All right, this whole thing's been dripping. Well, after I took the thing off, after I took the water pan off, I let it drip on the floor, so I went and got some paper towel and cleaned that up. Now we're gonna take this bracket off, and that comes off by removing these 3 screws here. Or bolts rather. Okay, I got the 3 bolts off. I'm now going to disconnect the pump itself from the power supply and that drain line hose there. Once I do that, the whole thing will come out. Correction, I did not disconnect the power supply. That power supply doesn't plug in and out there. It's hardwired in there and then wires to the connections up there. So the pump is staying here. I disconnected the hose from this piece and had a bucket down here. Fortunately, a lot of water came out of the drain line, which is right there. All right, so this is the pump. The pump gets turned on by this switch. I'm now going to service this switch. I can get the switch out by disconnecting that power supply and that hose. Here we go. All right, let's do that. One thing I forgot to mention, before you disconnect this switch, you should make sure to turn the breaker off for the whole unit, because once you disconnect that, the pump will just start running because it thinks it's time to pump, because it's still hooked up to the power supply. So I went and turned the breaker off, and then I can unhook this and the pump doesn't turn on. All right, getting this out of here is a little more complex. I got to put the camera down. Okay, this slides out from underneath the housing. It slides out from there. This wire, that wire there, power wire sits in that groove there, but it all slides out. So it slides out. I disconnected that hose from the pump, and the whole thing comes out. Now I'm going to take this upstairs and clean it out as best I can. Okay, the last time we saw this was 1 year and 9 months ago. Whoops. This is what it looks like now. The top plastic piece pops off. I'm going to take it off, which has the actual switch in it. And then I'm going to go to work on cleaning this thing as best I can. Okay, I just popped it off. Here's what our beloved switch looks like. If this fails, I don't know if that pump just keeps running or not, but this is what, I got to keep this clean. So if this fails to turn on the pump, the water then starts to spill out all over the floor once the drain pan gets full. But this is unfortunate, all this. So, all right, let me get to work on cleaning it. Okay, I've been messing around with this for a while. Wow, I can't even believe I got it this clean. I got a lot of the junk off in there with basically a toothbrush and soap and a little scraper and running a paper towel through there and blah, blah, blah. This, I'm not smart enough to know how that works. Maybe it's just water does something to that to turn the pump on. I am not an electrician, so I don't know how that works at all. But I cleaned that out as best I could and hope it keeps working. Yeah, so the entire WhisperKool is dependent upon that switch working and the water pump continuing to work. Without that, you have a flood in your wine room. Okay, the grossest part of this is cleaning this bracket. This takes quite a few paper towels to clean off a ton of that junk. Yeah, I think this is the worst part of the WhisperKool, is this bracket. That's what's happening to it, because it's sitting in water and it's made out of a material that's corroding. Yeah, and that corrosion is getting into our switch and into our hose and into our pump. So far this pump looks okay. I can't see how much. Yeah, you can see the rust in there on the other side of the pump. Right, it's getting sucked up through there. I have no idea how much longer this pump itself is going to last. Eventually it will fail from being clogged up with rust, thanks to this. No bueno. I won't find out that it's failed until the water starts coming out on the floor. All right, let's put it all back together. Okay, I've got the switch back in, attached to the pump. I have not attached the drain line to the pump just yet, because I have a hatch here next to the WhisperKool. I strongly recommend, like I said in the last video, making a hatch. I wanted to see what the other end of the drain tube looks like, I can't see that too well in this light, but you can see all that crud is going through the drain tube. So you know all that crud is in the pump, right? It's going in there and coming out there. That's why that's so brown. So the question is, how long till this fails? Wish I could take that apart and clean it, but that doesn't appear to be possible. Okay. Right, I've got the drain line back into the PVC pipe for drainage. I checked that with my finger. It's pretty wide open, so I'm not too worried about that. If I had a air hose, I'd blow that out, but I don't. All right, so the last thing to do is to hook this hose up to the pump and get it all back up in there. The bummer part is these three things here, the bolts have to be taken off. Those three each time. It'd be nicer if it was easier than just screwing bolts on there every time. This one especially is difficult. But c'est la vie, here we go. Okay, I've got the hose back on the pump, the drain hose there. Last thing you want are all of these things hanging down in the drain pan. So when you put it back on, when you put the bracket back on, you got to make sure this stuff is way up and not able to flop down into the water, because that would not be too cool. Okay, I've got the three nuts back on. I guess I was calling them bolts before, but I got the three nuts back on. There we go. And the whole thing is in there. I got the wires pushed up there. And I'm ready to put the water tray on. This is gonna sit in the water tray. Great, I can't hold the camera and put the water tray on, but next picture and it'll all be back on. Okay, I've got the water pan back on and getting ready to turn the whole thing back on. And the system is back on and running again. I turned on the WhisperKool with this keypad. It's back running. I'm not going to check it again for another year. I'm going to write to WhisperKool and ask them, and try to buy another pump from them, because I think a year from now I should buy a pump. I'm going to put a big empty plastic tub down here to catch the water should the pump fail. Lastly, I have a few things to say about wine rooms. Let me say that next. Okay, I knew nothing about wine rooms before I agreed to have this installed in my house that I was building. I knew nothing about wine rooms. Today, having gone through this with the WhisperKool, I have concluded the following, just for me. Number one, I don't want to ever have a ceiling mount cooling system in a wine room. It's just, the problem is, I don't care what the ceiling mount system is, you're going to have to deal with getting the water from the drain pan up, because it's ceiling mount, so you need a pump to pump it up to your drain line. No. I don't want any cooling system where I have to do this every year, right? I don't want any cooling system failing because the pump failed, right? And then the water just went out all over the floor. And especially in my dumb ass case, I've got this wood floor next to the wine room. So that's, yeah. So what we should have done, and what if I ever, and I'm never gonna do wine room again, but let's just say I'd put it in the wall, a side mount, right? Something that can just be accessed far easier. I presume that there's some sort of side mounted cooler that doesn't have to pump water up, right? Just have it gravity feed to a drain. Ceiling mounts, forget it. There's no point. Just from the water issue. Yeah. So, that's it. All right, in a year I'll make another WhisperKool 4000 water pump maintenance video. Let's hope it doesn't leak for a year.